Welcome back to TLDR's Daily Briefing for Tuesday the 18th of March 2025. In today's episode, we cover US deportations, the global landmine ban, and US strikes on Yemen. But first, the Gaza ceasefire collapses. Israel has pounded the Gaza Strip with airstrikes in a surprise attack that could mean a full return to fighting and the end of the fragile ceasefire in the territory. According to Gazan health authorities, Israeli airstrikes beginning early on Tuesday morning have killed more than 400 Palestinians at the time of writing. The Israeli military said it was targeting mid-ranking military commanders, leadership officials, and terrorist infrastructure belonging to Hamas. The Reuters news agency cites witnesses as saying that the airstrikes also hit homes and tent encampments housing civilians from the north to the south of Gaza, while Israeli tanks also shelled across the border into Gaza. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that Israel will, from now on, act against Hamas with increasing military strength. The Israeli military has issued evacuation orders for parts of the eastern strip, raising the prospect that Israel could launch renewed ground operations. As a reminder, the ceasefire agreed in January was a three-phase plan. The initial phase saw Hamas release 25 living Israeli hostages and return the remains of 8 others, in exchange for Israel releasing some 2,000 Palestinian detainees. This first phase ended in early March, and, under the original terms, was meant to transition into a second phase, during which negotiations would aim to secure a long-term ceasefire, a full Israeli withdrawal from Gaza, and the return of all the remaining hostages taken by Hamas on October 7, 2023. However, Israel has rejected the move to the second phase and has, backed by the United States, sought to extend the first phase and demand the return of all remaining hostages. Hamas has rejected these new demands, and 2 weeks ago, Israel cut off all food, medicine, fuel, electricity, and other supplies to Gaza. Prime Minister Netanyahu said that Tuesday's resumption of airstrikes on Gaza, quote, followed Hamas's repeated refusal to release our hostages, as well as its rejection of all the proposals it has received from the US. The White House similarly pinned the blame for the renewed Israeli airstrikes on Hamas. The group representing families of Israeli hostages taken by Hamas criticized the Israeli government's move, saying the resumption of hostilities will lead to the killing of living hostages and the disappearance of the fallen, and amounted to the government sacrificing the remaining 59 hostages. This new wave of airstrikes is already having a domestic impact inside Israel. Former National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir said his far-right party was rejoining Netanyahu's coalition following the resumed airstrikes, strengthening the government which had been left with a thin parliamentary majority after Ben-Gvir quit in disagreement with the ceasefire deal. Additionally, Netanyahu's scheduled testimony in his long-running corruption trial has been cancelled and postponed due to the new military operation in Gaza. The new operation also came ahead of planned mass protests against Netanyahu's plan to fire the head of the Shin Bet intelligence agency. You're listening to TLDR's Daily Briefing. If you want more explainers on what's happening in the world, then you should check out TLDR's other channels. Today, we released videos on why gold is surging and why the UK is so pro-Ukraine. You can find those videos linked in the description or show notes for this episode, or by searching for TLDR on YouTube or Nebula. The US deported more than 250 mainly Venezuelan alleged gang members to El Salvador as part of a deal under which the US will pay the Central American country to hold them in its 40,000-person capacity terrorism confinement center. However, these deportations went against a US judge's ruling to halt the flights on Saturday, and now a federal judge has ordered the Donald Trump administration to explain its refusal to turn around the planes. Trump cited the Alien Enemies Act as a justification for the removals, a 1798 law meant only to be used in wartime, which allows the president broad leeway on policy and executive action to speed up mass deportations. Trump's administration has until the end of today to formally reply, but has claimed that the judge lacked the necessary authority. Moving now to Europe, which is rushing to bolster its security as the US pursues a rapprochement with the Kremlin. In a joint statement, the defense ministers of Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland announced their intention to withdraw from the 1997 Ottawa Treaty, which prohibits the use of anti-personnel landmines. They cited the need for flexibility and freedom of choice in defending NATO's eastern border with Russia, arguing that exiting this treaty would facilitate the stockpiling and deployment of landmines once again. Finland is also reportedly considering a similar withdrawal. Although the treaty has not been ratified by some of the world's most influential countries, including the US, Russia, China, India, and Israel, it has gained support from over 160 nations. This landmark international disarmament agreement aimed to put an end to the tens of thousands of civilian casualties caused by landmines, many of which occur long after conflicts have concluded. The International Committee of the Red Cross has expressed grave concern regarding these withdrawals. Renewed fighting between the US and Yemen's Houthi rebels erupted over the weekend, marked by a series of intense airstrikes launched by the US, targeting the Houthis. Reports indicate that at least 5 children were among the 53 casualties in the airstrikes that struck the Al Jauf and Hudaydah regions of Yemen. In retaliation on Sunday, the Houthis attempted to attack a US aircraft carrier stationed in the Red Sea. Today, President Trump issued a warning to Iran, a longtime backer of Yemen's rebels, stating that the country would face serious consequences if the Houthis continued to threaten international shipping lanes. That's all for today. We'll be back with you tomorrow, so make sure you're subscribed wherever you listen. In the meantime, if you want to support the show, then consider grabbing a copy of our physical magazine, Too Long. The next edition, coming out in April, covers the world's 25 most influential people, as ranked by us, the TLDR team, and you, the TLDR audience. Inside, we unpack who these influential people are, explain how they got their influence, and tell stories about how they choose to wield this immense power. The entire thing is beautifully designed, contains a bunch of other stories, and runs over 72 pages of our best journalism. If you're interested, you can use the code TLDRDaily at the checkout to get £2 off your copy, which brings the cost of a subscription down as low as £5.99. Buying Too Long helps to fund all of our journalism, so make sure you do check it out. You can find the link in the podcast description. This was a TLDR News production, hosted by Georgina Findlay, written by Rory Taylor and Nadja Lovadinov, and produced by Scarlett Watchorn. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back again tomorrow.